Padre Pio, staring deep into a woman's eyes in San Giovanni Rotondo, uttered 5 words that caused her to faint right there in the confessional. He'd just revealed something she had kept hidden, even from herself. She had been under spiritual attack for years and didn't even know it. You might be in the same situation right now. What I'm about to reveal over the next few minutes are the 5 signs that Padre Pio instantly recognized in the souls that came to him. Signs that the Vatican documented in over 3,000 testimonies. Signs that the modern church rarely mentions. And signs that, according to Padre Pio himself, affect more than 70% of Catholics who attend Mass regularly. Yes, you heard that right, 70%. But before I reveal each of these signs, I need to tell you what happened that afternoon in 1953, when a group of cardinals secretly arrived in San Giovanni Rotondo to investigate Padre Pio's methods of discernment. What they discovered completely changed the way the Church understands demonic attacks. Do you feel like something is wrong in your spiritual life, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Do you pray, go to Mass, try to do everything right, but it feels like there's an invisible barrier between you and God? Do you wake up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, especially between 3 and 4 in the morning? Do you feel constantly exhausted, even after a full night's sleep? Do strange thoughts invade your mind during prayer? If you answered yes to any of those questions, what I'm about to reveal might explain absolutely everything. Padre Pio spent over 50 years in the confessional, over 50 years looking directly into people's souls, over 50 years identifying patterns that no other priest in history could see with such clarity, and he left behind a legacy that few people know about. The 5 signs he identified are not theories. They are documented facts, witnessed by thousands, confirmed by the Church, and ignored by most modern Catholics. The investigation of 1953 began because the Vatican received disturbing reports. Padre Pio was refusing absolution to seemingly devout people. People who went to Mass every day. People who prayed the complete rosary. People who, in the eyes of any other priest, were examples of faith. But Padre Pio saw something that the others didn't. The cardinals arrived in secret. They didn't want the population to know about the investigation. They didn't want to create a scandal. The plan was simple. Observe Padre Pio for a week and document his methods. What they didn't expect was that Padre Pio already knew about their arrival. When Cardinal Ottaviani, who led the delegation, entered the sacristy, Padre Pio looked at him and said, "Your Eminence, you arrived 3 days earlier than you originally planned. The devil tried to delay you with that pain in your knee, but Our Lady intervened." The cardinal was silent. No one knew that he had changed the date of the trip. No one knew about the pain that tormented him the night before his departure, a pain that mysteriously disappeared when he prayed the rosary at 3 in the morning. That was the first sign that the investigation would reveal much more than they expected. During the following 7 days, the cardinals watched Padre Pio attend to more than 400 people in the confessional, and what they saw defied any natural explanation. Padre Pio could identify in seconds whether or not a person was under demonic influence. He didn't need to hear the full confession. He simply knew. And even more disturbing, he explained exactly when and how the attack had started. It was on the 4th day of observation that Padre Pio revealed to the cardinals the 5 universal signs. He said, "Your Eminences, the devil is predictable. He's used the same strategies for thousands of years, and he always leaves the same traces. If you teach the faithful to recognize these traces, half of the attacks will immediately lose their power. The first sign that Padre Pio identified was the most subtle of all, and for that very reason, the most dangerous. He called it the fog of indifference. The person begins to gradually lose interest in the things of God. It's not an active rejection. It's not a conscious decision to abandon the faith. It's something much more insidious. The Mass that once brought peace begins to seem too long. The rosary that was once a refuge begins to seem repetitive. The prayer that once connected with heaven begins to seem like an empty monologue. Padre Pio explained to the cardinals, the devil knows that he can't rip away faith all at once, so he corrodes it, little by little. He places a fog between the soul and God, a fog so thin that the person doesn't even notice. They continue going to Mass, they continue praying, but something has changed. The flame has diminished. Cardinal Ottaviani asked how to differentiate this demonic fog from a simple phase of spiritual dryness, which is common in the life of any Christian. Padre Pio's answer was revealing. He said, in natural spiritual dryness, the soul suffers from the absence of God. It misses him, it seeks him, it fights. In the demonic fog, the soul becomes complacent. It doesn't miss him, it doesn't seek him. It accepts spiritual mediocrity as normal. That distinction is fundamental. If you're reading this and recognize that your prayer life has cooled, ask yourself an honest question. Do you miss the fervor you had before? Are you bothered by the current situation, or have you simply accepted that this is just how it is? The answer to that question might reveal whether you're in natural dryness or under the first sign of spiritual attack. Padre Pio told the cardinals about the case of a sister who came to confess to him in 1947. She was considered one of the most exemplary nuns in the convent. She never missed prayers, she never complained, she never caused trouble. The other sisters saw her as a model of virtue. But when she knelt in the confessional, Padre Pio said, "Daughter, how long has it been since you truly loved God?" The sister began to cry. She confessed that for over 10 years she had fulfilled all her religious obligations mechanically, without feeling anything, without desiring anything, without seeking anything, beyond the routine. She had confused obedience with love. She had confused presence with devotion. She had confused habit with faith. Padre Pio told her, the devil convinced you that doing the minimum is enough, and you believed him. For 10 years, he stole from you the joy of holiness, and you didn't even realize it because you kept fulfilling your obligations. The sister asked what she should do. Padre Pio responded, start today to ask God to rekindle the fire in your heart. Don't ask for anything else. Don't ask for graces. Don't ask for miracles. Ask only for this. Lord, make me desire to love you again. The sister followed his advice. 3 months later, she returned to San Giovanni Rotondo. Padre Pio recognized her immediately and smiled. He said, the fog has lifted. Welcome back to life. This is the first sign, the fog of indifference, the acceptance of spiritual mediocrity, the gradual loss of the desire for holiness. If you recognize yourself in that description, don't panic. Padre Pio always said that recognizing the attack is half the victory. The other half comes from action, but before I teach you what to do, I need to reveal the other 4 signs, because rarely does the devil use just one strategy, and the following signs are even more revealing. The second sign that Padre Pio identified, he called the voice of the accuser. It's a pattern of thinking that seems to come from within, but has an external origin. A person starts to hear an inner voice that constantly accuses them. It's not the voice of conscience that alerts us to sin. It's different. It's a voice that accuses without offering hope, a voice that condemns without offering redemption, a voice that reminds you of past sins already confessed as if they had never been forgiven. Padre Pio explained, "The conscience is like a mother who scolds her child to correct them. The accuser is like a prosecutor who only wants to condemn. The conscience points out the error and shows the way to correction. The accuser points out the error and says that there is no possible correction." The cardinals were impressed with the precision of this distinction. Padre Pio continued, "How many Catholics live under the weight of sins that have already been absolved? How many confess the same sin dozens of times because the voice of the accuser convinces them that God hasn't truly forgiven them? How many abandon the faith because they believe they've committed something unforgivable?" He told the story of a man who came to San Giovanni Rotondo in 1951. This man had a terrible secret. In his youth and during the war, he had committed an act that had tormented him for more than 30 years. He had already confessed this sin to 7 different priests. Each of them absolved him, but he couldn't forgive himself. The voice of the accuser constantly said, "God may have forgiven others, but not you. Your sin was different. Your sin was worse. You don't deserve forgiveness." When the man entered Padre Pio's confessional, he didn't even need to say anything. Padre Pio said, "Son, you've been carrying a weight that isn't yours for 32 years. This weight doesn't come from God. God forgave you in the first confession. In the other 6, you weren't confessing sin. You were feeding the accuser." The man began to sob. Padre Pio continued, "Every time you doubt God's forgiveness, you give power to the devil. Every time you repeat a confession already made out of insecurity, you're saying that the blood of Christ wasn't sufficient for your sin." This truth hit the man like a bolt of lightning. Padre Pio gave him an unusual penance. He said, "Your penance is to never confess this sin again. Every time the voice of the accuser comes, you will answer in a loud voice, 'This has already been washed away by the blood of Christ. I no longer belong to you.'" The man followed the penance. In the first weeks, it was difficult. The voice of the accuser intensified the attacks. But little by little, it lost strength, until one day, it simply stopped. That's the second sign. The voice of the accuser, the constant doubt about divine forgiveness, the weight of sins already absolved, the inability to accept God's mercy. If you live like this, know that it isn't humility. Padre Pio was very clear about this. He said, "Doubting God's forgiveness is not a sign of deep repentance. It's a sign of pride, because deep down you're saying that your sin is greater than infinite mercy." This phrase may seem harsh, but it's liberating when you understand the meaning. Accepting God's forgiveness is an act of faith. Refusing it is an act of disbelief disguised as humility. The third sign that Padre Pio identified was the most visible of all, and therefore, paradoxically, the most ignored. He called it forced isolation. When the devil attacks a soul, he tries to isolate it, to separate it from the community of faith, to create barriers between it and other people who could help it. Padre Pio explained, "The devil knows that a sheep separated from the flock is easy prey, so he works to create division. He uses grudges, offenses, wounded pride, anything that makes the person turn away from the church, from the sacraments, from the community." The cardinals asked how this manifested itself in practice. Padre Pio gave several examples. The person who stops going to Mass because the priest said something that offended them. The person who abandons the prayer group because they had a disagreement with another member. The person who stops confessing because they were embarrassed by the last confession. The person who convinces themselves that they can have a spiritual life alone without needing the church. He said, "In all these cases, there's an apparently reasonable justification. The priest really may have been rude. The member of the group may have been unfair, the shame may be genuine, but observe, in all cases, the result is the same. The person pulls away, and that's exactly what the devil wants. Padre Pio told the story of an entire family who stopped attending church because of a fight with the parish caretaker. The fight was about reserved seats in the pews, an insignificant issue that escalated into personal offenses. The family left Mass vowing never to return. 10 years later, the matriarch of this family came to San Giovanni Rotondo, not to confess. She had come only as a tourist, curious to see the famous stigmatized friar. But when she passed through the corridor where Padre Pio was walking, he stopped, looked at her, and said, 10 years away from Jesus because of a seat in the pew. The devil must be very satisfied with the bargain. The woman was paralyzed. Padre Pio continued walking, but said over his shoulder, "The caretaker died 3 years ago, and he's already in heaven. How much longer are you going to wait to come home?" The woman fell to her knees, crying in the corridor. That same afternoon, she sought out Padre Pio for confession, and the whole family returned to church in the following weeks. That's the third sign: forced isolation, the tendency to turn away from the community of faith for reasons that seem justifiable, but that result in exactly what the devil desires. Padre Pio always repeated, "The devil doesn't care why you turn away. He just wants you to turn away. If he needs to use a real offense, he uses it. If he needs to create an imaginary one, he creates it. The important thing for him is the result." If you are away from the church for any reason, ask yourself an honest question: who is benefiting from this? It isn't a question about who was right or wrong in the original situation. It's a question about the consequences. Are you closer to God since you turned away? Has your spiritual life improved? Has your peace increased? If the answer is no, you know what you need to do. The fourth sign that Padre Pio identified, was perhaps the most disturbing to the cardinals listening to him. He called it the inversion of the senses. When a soul is under prolonged spiritual attack, something strange begins to happen. The things of God start to cause discomfort, and the things of the world start to seem too attractive. Padre Pio explained, "A healthy soul feels peace in prayer, even if it's difficult. It feels joy at Mass, even if it's tired. It feels attraction to good, even if it costs something." A soul under attack begins to feel the opposite. Prayer brings anxiety. Mass brings boredom. Good seems too heavy. He gave a concrete example. A person who could pray the entire rosary with ease starts to find it unbearable to finish even one decade. A person who once loved Eucharistic adoration starts to constantly check the clock. A person who felt peace when fasting starts to get irritated and bitter. Padre Pio said, "The devil cannot change reality, but he can change perception. He cannot make prayer bad, but he can make prayer seem unbearable. He cannot make sin good, but he can make sin seem attractive." The cardinals asked how a person could know if they were experiencing this inversion. Padre Pio responded, "Ask yourself, what attracts me most easily? The things that build up my soul, or the things that harm it? Which requires more effort, to do good or to avoid evil?" He told the case of a young seminarian who almost abandoned his calling because of this sign. The young man had entered the seminary full of fervor. In the first 2 years, his prayer life was his joy. But in the 3rd year, something changed. Prayer started to seem like a burden. Theological studies, which had once fascinated him, began to seem tedious. The temptations at which had once been easy to resist became almost irresistible. He thought he had lost his calling, that God had turned away from him, that maybe he had never truly been called. His superiors sent him to San Giovanni Rotondo to speak with Padre Pio. When the young man entered the confessional, Padre Pio said immediately, "You have not lost your calling. You are being attacked because your calling is true. The devil doesn't waste time with those who are no threat to him." The seminarian began to cry with relief. Padre Pio continued, "What you are feeling is not the voice of God sending you away. It is the voice of the enemy, trying to expel you. The difference is crucial. God calls with peace, even when he asks for sacrifice. The devil drives away with disturbance, even when he offers pleasure." He gave the seminarian specific guidance. Each time you feel repulsed by prayer, you should pray 5 minutes more, beyond the usual time. Each time you feel attraction to something wrong, you should make a small sacrifice in reparation. The seminarian followed the guidance. It was difficult at first, but little by little, the spiritual senses began to reorient themselves. The inversion was being corrected. He finished seminary and was ordained a priest 3 years later. That is the fourth sign, the inversion of the senses, when good seems heavy and evil seems light, when prayer causes anxiety and sin causes attraction. If you are experiencing this, know that it is not a sign that you are a bad person. It may be the exact opposite. It may be a sign that you are enough of a threat for the devil to invest time and energy in attacking you. And now, the fifth sign, the last and most grave of all, this sign. Padre Pio revealed to the cardinals with great seriousness. He asked them to close the door of the room before speaking. The fifth sign he called the contamination of sleep. When the spiritual attack intensifies, it begins to affect the dreams, not in a random way, in a specific and recurrent way. Padre Pio explained, "The devil cannot enter the soul without permission, but during sleep, the natural defenses of the mind diminish. That is why so many attacks happen at night. That is why 3 in the morning is called the devil's hour by exorcists." He described the patterns that he identified, recurring nightmares with themes of persecution, death, or despair, waking up always at the same time, especially between 3 and 4 in the morning, sensation of a presence in the room upon waking, sleep paralysis with disturbing visions, dreams with people you know, doing things that completely contradict their character. Padre Pio said, "Not every nightmare is a demonic attack, but when the patterns repeat, when the times are always the same, when the person wakes up exhausted, even having slept, when the dreams start to affect the behavior during the day, then you need to pay attention." The cardinals asked why the devil chose this method. Padre Pio responded, "Because it works. The person cannot control what they dream. They wake up disturbed, but cannot prove that they were attacked. They start to be afraid of sleeping. The fear generates anxiety. The anxiety generates exhaustion. The exhaustion weakens the spiritual defenses. It is a cycle." He told the most serious case that he had ever attended to. A woman came to San Giovanni Rotondo in 1949. She had not slept well for more than 2 years. Every night, exactly at 3:15, she woke up with the same nightmare. In the dream, she was in an empty church. The images of the saints were turned backwards, and a voice said repeatedly, "God has abandoned you. There is no salvation for you." She had gone to doctors, psychologists, other priests. No one could help her. The doctors said it was stress. The psychologists talked about trauma. The other priests prayed for her, but nothing changed. When she arrived to Padre Pio, she could barely stand, so exhausted. Padre Pio looked at her with compassion and said, "You are not crazy. You are at war, and you are losing because you don't know who the enemy is and what weapons to use." He spent more than an hour with her. This was unusual, as normally his confessions lasted only a few minutes. What he revealed to her at that hour completely changed her situation. Padre Pio explained to the woman that the nightmare had a weak point, and every demonic attack has a weak point. He said, "The devil chose the empty church because he knows that you love the church. He chose the saints facing backwards because he knows that you trust in their intercession. He chose the phrase, 'God has abandoned you,' because he knows that your greatest fear is exactly that. He is using your own strengths against you." The woman asked how this could help her. Padre Pio responded, "Because it means that he is afraid of the same things that you love. If he were not afraid of the church, why would he attack you with images of the church? If he weren't afraid of the saints, why would he turn them to face the wall? If he didn't know that God never abandons you, why would he repeat that lie so many times?" This revelation completely changed the woman's perspective. Padre Pio then gave her specific instructions. First instruction: before sleeping, make the sign of the cross with holy water on every door and window of the bedroom. Second instruction: place a picture of Our Lady facing the bed, with a blessed candle lit beside it. Third instruction: pray 3 Hail Marys, specifically asking for protection during sleep. Fourth instruction: if you wake up from the nightmare, don't panic. Immediately pray aloud, "Saints of heaven, turn to me. Jesus, you are here. I am not abandoned." The woman followed each instruction exactly as Padre Pio directed. On the first night, the nightmare came at 3:15 a.m., as always. But when she prayed the prayer that Padre Pio taught, something different happened. In the dream, the saints began to turn around, not all at once, one by one, and the church began to light up. She woke up crying, but not from fear, from relief. On the second night, the nightmare came weaker. The church was no longer completely empty. There was a faint light coming from the altar. On the third night, she slept through the entire night without nightmares. In 1 week, the 2 years of torture were over. When she returned to San Giovanni Rotondo to thank him, Padre Pio said something she never forgot. The devil is persistent, but a coward. He attacks where he seems strong, but flees when he encounters true resistance. You didn't win because you are stronger than him. You won because you accepted the strength that comes from heaven. That's the fifth sign, the contamination of sleep, the recurring nightmares, the awakenings always at the same time, the exhaustion that no amount of sleep resolves. If you are experiencing this, there is hope. Padre Pio saw thousands of people freed from this type of attack, but liberation requires action. It requires the sacraments. It requires constant prayer, and it requires courage to resist. Now that you know the 5 signs, I need to tell you something the cardinals discovered on the last day of the investigation. Something that completely changed the way they understood Padre Pio's ministry. On the 7th day, the cardinals asked to see the confession records, not the content, which is confidential, but the statistics. How many people Padre Pio heard? How many received immediate absolution? How many were directed to additional preparation? The numbers shocked them. Of every 100 people who confessed to Padre Pio, approximately 70 exhibited at least one of the 5 signs of spiritual attack. 70%. Cardinal Ottaviani asked, "But Father, these are people who come to confession. They are people of faith. How can so many be under attack?" Padre Pio's answer was devastating. He said, "Your Eminence, the devil doesn't attack those who already belong to him. He attacks those who belong to God. The more a soul seeks holiness, the more it becomes a target. The 70% I mention are not lapsed sinners. They are souls who are trying to live righteously, and that is precisely why they are attacked." The cardinals were silent, processing this information. Padre Pio continued, "The problem is, the modern church has stopped teaching about the enemy. We stopped talking about the devil as if, by ignoring him, he would cease to exist, but he hasn't. He has simply begun to act without being recognized, and that is much more dangerous." This observation by Padre Pio, made in 1953, seems even more relevant today. How many homilies have you heard about the reality of the devil and spiritual attacks? How many priests speak openly about discernment of spirits? How many Catholics know how to identify if they are being attacked? Padre Pio feared exactly this. He predicted that a time would come when the church would become so focused on being accepted by the world that it would forget to protect its children from the invisible enemy. But he also left hope. He said to the cardinals, "Mary never abandons her children. Even when the official church seems distracted, the Heavenly Mother continues to watch over them. That's why the rosary is the weapon. That's why Marian consecration is a shield. That's why those who give themselves completely to Our Lady are rarely overcome by the enemy." That is perhaps the most important message I can convey today. You may be under spiritual attack. The signs may be present in your life, but you are not alone, and you are not defenseless. Padre Pio spent 50 years teaching how to resist, and what he taught is available to you now. Let me tell you about a specific protection that Padre Pio recommended for those under spiritual attack. He called it the triple shield. First element, frequent confession. Padre Pio recommended confession at least twice a month for those under attack. He said, "Each sincere confession weakens the dominion of the enemy. Each absolution is like reinforcing the walls of a castle." Second element, the Eucharist. Padre Pio was emphatic. Jesus in the sacrament is the greatest terror of the devil. That's why he does everything to prevent people from communing worthily. He either keeps them away from Mass or makes them commune in mortal sin. Either option serves his purposes. Third element, the daily rosary. Padre Pio said hundreds of times that the rosary was his main weapon, not a mechanical rosary prayed in haste to fulfill an obligation, but a meditative rosary prayed with the heart, offered specifically for one's own protection and for the conversion of sinners. This triple shield, confession, Eucharist, and rosary, was what Padre Pio recommended to anyone who identified the signs of attack in their life. He said, "There is no demonic attack that can withstand these three elements practiced with constancy and faith." The problem is that most people want a quick solution. They want a miraculous prayer that solves everything at once. But the spiritual life does not work that way. It's a war of resistance, and resistance requires daily discipline. Now, before I finish, I need to ask you something. If this content has touched you in any way, if you recognized yourself in any of the 5 signs, if you felt that Padre Pio was speaking directly to you through these words, then you understand the value of what you have just received. This type of teaching about spiritual discernment has practically disappeared from modern catechesis. People suffer for years under attacks that could be identified and combated simply because no one teaches them. The super thanks button that appears below is not just a way to financially support this work. It's a way to say, These truths need to continue to be revealed. It's a way to participate in the mission of bringing light to a time of spiritual darkness. Padre Pio used to say that those who help spread spiritual truth are like soldiers in the battle for the salvation of souls. You can become one of those soldiers right now. Every contribution allows more people to receive this teaching. Every act of support ensures that Padre Pio's legacy continues to live on and remains accessible to those who need it most. If you feel in your heart that this is important, trust that feeling. That's how the Holy Spirit speaks to us. But regardless of financial support, what matters right now is what you're going to do with what you've learned. Let me give you a practical plan. Tonight, before you go to sleep, do an honest self-assessment. Grab a piece of paper and write down which of the 5 signs you've identified in your own life. First sign, the fog of indifference. Have you lost the spiritual fervor you once had? Second sign, the voice of the accuser. Are you carrying the weight of sins you've already confessed? Third sign, forced isolation. Have you withdrawn from the church or from your community for any reason? Fourth sign, the inversion of senses. Does good seem burdensome and evil seem attractive? Fifth sign, contamination of sleep. Recurrent nightmares or waking up always at the same time? Be honest with yourself. Don't minimize, don't justify. Just identify. After you've identified them, make 3 commitments. First commitment, schedule a confession for this week. Don't delay. The longer you wait, the harder it will become. Second commitment, pray the entire rosary at least once in the next 7 days. If you already pray it daily, offer a rosary specifically for your liberation from any spiritual attack. Third commitment, visit Jesus in the Eucharist. This could be at Sunday Mass or during adoration during the week, but go. Spend at least 15 minutes in silence before the Blessed Sacrament. These 3 simple commitments are the beginning of your response to the attacks you may be experiencing. Padre Pio always said, God doesn't wait for perfection to help us. He only waits for us to take the first step. He'll do the rest. Take that first step today. And before you go, I need to ask you a question that will help both you and other people who are watching. Of the 5 signs I revealed today, which one did you recognize in your own life? Write just the number in the comments. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you identified more than one, write them all. This information is important for 2 reasons. First, because verbalizing what you've discovered is part of the process of liberation. Padre Pio said that the devil hates to be exposed. When you admit that you're under attack, you've already begun to resist. Second, because the comments help other people realize that they're not alone. When someone reads that others have identified the same sign, it gives them the courage to act. So comment now. Which of the 5 signs did you identify? If you're still not sure, watch this video again. Pay attention to the descriptions. Compare them to your own experience. Clarity will come. And remember the words of Padre Pio. The devil is like a chained dog. He barks, he threatens, he seems terrible, but he can only bite those who get too close. Keep your distance. Uphold the sacraments. Maintain prayer, and he won't be able to reach you. You're not alone in this battle. The Church militant is by your side. The Church triumphant intercedes for you. And the Church suffering in purgatory needs your prayers as much as you need theirs. May Our Lady of the Rosary cover you with her mantle of protection. May Saint Michael the Archangel defend you in combat. And may Padre Pio, from heaven where he surely is, continue to guide souls like yours away from the clutches of the enemy. Pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful, and he will hear your prayer. That was the message that Padre Pio repeated most in life, and it's the message I leave you with now. Pray, hope, don't worry. God is in control, even when it doesn't seem like it. especially when it doesn't seem like it. Now go, do your part, and let God do his. The peace of Christ be with you, and the protection of Mary accompany you always.